Earlier this morning, Nintendo unveiled their long-awaited General Nintendo Direct, and as everyone expected, this was an absolute banger, filled top to bottom with amazing 10 out of 10 announcements, ports of beloved classics, and new surprises that nobody really saw coming. And I was very happy with this direct. Everyone I know was very happy with this direct. But as always, we are seeing a bunch of naysayers come out and desperately do whatever they can to downplay it. What we're seeing right now on Twitter, on 4chan, is just a bunch of coping and seething from PC gamers. This idea that there was nothing exciting announced, that there's nothing to look forward to, that the games are too expensive. All of this is just a gigantic cope. And I do think we kind of do need to preface this, like during every direct going forward. Never, ever want to hear people complaining about price points, especially when it comes to like re-releases of old games that aren't available anymore or new ones. Every single time Nintendo did any announcement, and I've seen like dozens and dozens of content creators do this, like every single time, like people are commenting on the price point, people are complaining about the hardware price. People are just like doing everything they possibly can to avoid talking about the actual game. And this absolutely needs to stop. I have never seen so much complaining about $70 games. Like, that's just the long and short of it. Like, Mario Galaxy is $80, but that's two $40 games bundled together, which you can pay separately. So what you're seeing is people complaining about $70 games, which is the standard MSRP. It is cheaper than what games are going to be next generation. It's going to be cheaper than Grand Theft Auto 6. And you're still seeing people sitting there and complaining about the price point for games that they really, truly don't have the slightest clue about. They are complaining about like the pettiest things imaginable. And it just, to me, it just speaks volumes about how none of these people have anything of value to say, to add to the conversation, because basically everything they announced in this direct was good. Like, there were a couple of disappointments, but for the most part, it was like a well-presented showcase that highlighted a lot of exciting new announcements. But you saw a lot of people bending over backwards to try and downplay a lot of these titles, especially if it's like third-party ports. The amount of seething I saw towards like Resident Evil Requiem in particular was insane. Like, there were a lot of people apparently who were like convinced that the Switch can't run that and were adamant that it wouldn't be coming out on the platform. But lo and behold, Capcom is struggling. So all of a sudden, their big new Resident Evil game is launching on Nintendo Switch 2. Like, imagine that. Like, Capcom has bent the knee, after years of seething and doing everything they possibly can to stay off of Nintendo hardware. Here they come crawling back like they always do, like a battered housewife. Like, it's just like unbelievable. Like, Capcom is just unbelievably pathetic. And what's even more ridiculous is just how the community is just, they treat these third-party game announcements. Because I pointed this out when Silksong came out, but like every time some major third-party game gets announced, whether it's like Silksong or Virtua Fighter 5 or Resident Evil Requiem, like there's always this like weird undercurrent. Like, the game doesn't actually matter, that it doesn't count as like a real Switch 2 game, because like, well, there's this big prevalent like undertone to like anti-Nintendo discourse. Like, oh, Super Mario Galaxy gets re-released. Like, oh, I don't need to buy that. Like, I can these third-party games. Oh, I can just get that on my PC. Like there's no thought or consideration given to the fact that like Switch 2 is the better platform than PC. And if you don't believe me, portability, that by itself gives it more flexibility than anything on PC. Like again, the PC cannot compare to the Switch's core functionality, which makes it objectively better than all alternative formats. Like, and again, like every single time, there's just this like obsessive need to try and downplay these showcases, no matter how well received they are. Like, this is a game, this was a direct that had tons of huge banger announcements. We got the most amiibo we've ever seen in any showcase in years. We got the Mario Galaxy movie announcement. We got lots of 40th anniversary Mario related announcements. We got like Donkey Kong DLC. We got like all this stuff that really showcases how strong this Nintendo Switch 2 is at this stage of its lifespan. And right now, we are still seeing the terminally online gaming community refusing to admit the Switch is more successful than the PC, the PlayStation, Xbox, and mobile. There is this very strong inability from the audience to understand that Nintendo is now a multimedia company, and something like Grand Theft Auto 6 cannot compete with Pokemon. That's just something that the community can't wrap its head around, is that like because Pokemon has branched out into trading card games, into anime, into merchandising, like it is bigger than Grand Theft Auto 6. Like it doesn't matter how many units Grand Theft Auto 6 sells. It's never going to be as big as Pokemon. And that's also true for a lot of these other franchises. And I think most prevalently Fire Emblem. Because this has become like a bit of a trend with every Nintendo Direct where like a Fire Emblem game gets announced. You get this like certain demographic that comes out and starts spurging about it and starts freaking out like, oh no, another Fire Emblem game. Like Fire Emblem is one of Nintendo's most lucrative IPs now. And it's not because the games are high sellers, it's because of the merchandising and like the waifu shit. Like it's their waifu brand now. Okay, so it's really big with that kind of demographic, which is of course like the sort of people who will spend a lot of money on figurines of the characters and DLC and so forth. Like Fire Emblem is way bigger than I think a lot of people realize at this stage, and like people really need to wrap their minds around it. That like Fire Emblem is like quite a bit bigger than I think than most Japanese RPG franchises, and there's just this like unwillingness from the community to admit it, that like it's this huge cultural phenomenon now, that it's one of Nintendo's biggest IPs. And like you also have like, a lot of dismissive people towards like Tamagotchi Life. One of the things I saw with this direct was people complaining about Animal Crossing not being there, completely ignoring the fact that Tamagotchi and Pokapia were like two games that are very similar, life sims that were also being produced by different studios and like should have some crossover appeal. Like if you're a fan of Animal Crossing, like you should be interested in like these alternate takes on the genre, right? Like to me, it just seems like people are obsessed with like Animal Crossing as a brand, but I think it's kind of becoming like the Metroid thing now, where like it doesn't matter if other good games exist. The problem is like the status associated with that specific brand, and they aren't really fans of the genre or the developer at all. They just like the status associated with, and that kind of goes into like, I think kind of the grimmest, darkest aspect of this Nintendo Direct is that we saw Metroid Prime 4 again. And once again, I immediately came out and said, this is garbage. This looks terrible. They haven't shown us any footage. They're hiding stuff. They're sending this game out to die. Like, I think that this game, like, had a really rough development cycle, and that there's nothing that anyone can do to salvage it. Like, it probably should have been canceled, like, when it was when they rebooted it the first time, but this is something that I've been saying for a long time, that like Metroid Prime 4 doesn't seem to be coming together very well. But everyone else made excuses for it. Everyone else said this game was going to be great, that I was like delusional, that this was going to be one of the best games on Switch. And in the end, it didn't even like launch as a Switch exclusive. It's also coming to Switch too. And it is the worst game that they have shown off so far. Like in this specific showcase, Metroid Prime 4 looked abysmal. And because of like the elitist Metroid fan attitude, they are completely incapable of acknowledging that Metroid Prime 4 is a disappointment. What they're doing is that they're sitting there whining, complaining, crying about every other Nintendo game, but at the end of the day, they're going to worship Metroid Prime just because it's a realistically rendered first-person adventure game. That is the only reason that this game is getting any positive attention at all. It's you didn't see this happen with Dread. You didn't see this happen with Samus Returns. You didn't see this happen with Federation Force or Other M. Like, everyone was like pretty skeptical about all those games, but Metroid Prime 4 for years has gotten pass after pass after pass from the community just because of their insane idea that this game is somehow going to make Nintendo like respected among the Western gaming sphere. That's all this is. That's all this boils down to, is that like it's just insecure people who wish more Nintendo IPs were like Metroid. And I'm a Metroid fan. I've always been an advocate for the series, but at the same time, there does need to be like an understanding with the community that like the image of the series online contrasts pretty heavily with the reality of it, where I would say Metroid as a brand is like one of Nintendo's most niche series. Like nobody talks about, like nobody plays it, nobody knows anything about it. Like the games consistently don't do very well, right? Like they have this reputation for being these amazing games, and they are, but at the end of the day, they're not that popular because they have been long eclipsed in relevancy by every other Nintendo brand, by Donkey Kong, by Fire Emblem, by Pikmin, like, Animal Crossing, Splatoon. Like, there are just so many, like, Nintendo IPs that get no attention at all that are doing way better than Metroid is right now. And instead of, like, celebrating those games' successes and acknowledging that, like, better games exist, all anybody can do is just endlessly seethe about Metroid not being as successful. Like they constantly make excuses for it. They say Nintendo doesn't support it enough, or that like this or that. Like they make all these excuses, but like the long and short of it is that Metroid is just not appealing to a mass audience. We have to acknowledge, as Nintendo fans, that Metroid is not a system seller for Nintendo. In a lot of ways, never was, and it does not deserve the reputation that it's earned among the online gaming community. I have no interest in worshiping Metroid Prime 4 just because it's a first-person adventure game. Like I have no interest in like defending Retro Studios' actions and their inability to produce a product, because like they have shown time and time again that they are completely incompetent and need to be called out for what they've been doing over the past several years. Like the simple fact of the matter is, like, Prime 4 was one of the worst things shown off in this presentation, and I'm not seeing a whole lot of people talk about it. Like at least in the Nintendo camp, like Nintendo haters are talking shit about it, but they're actually right in this instance. That's more of a broken clock is right twice a day kind of thing. But by and large, Prime 4 looks like a complete disaster. And I've been saying this for a long time. I expect this to be the worst Metroid game ever. I think it's going to be worse than Other M by a wide margin. Like, I see nothing exciting about this product at all. And I will be the first to speak out against it when it launches in December. So Yeah, please stay tuned for that. But like in general, though, like the direct was very, very well handled. It was very well paced. It had a lot of exciting new announcements, and yet we're supposed to believe that for some reason this was some underwhelming thing with no real announcements. And I do think that we do need to openly start condemning the people in the community who act like this. Like, because everyone says they didn't announce anything that they wanted to play, and I'm just like, well, what do you want? You know, like that's kind of like my default reaction when I see like, I don't know, like random YouTubers like say it was a disappointing direct. Like, well, what did you want? Like it's like the idea that this was like some underwhelming direct doesn't hold up under any scrutiny at all. You know, I've been saying this for a while, but like the backlash towards Mario Kart World like doesn't seem to have impacted real world sales at all. You know, like the online gaming community is completely out of touch with the mass market. Like Bonanza is hugely successful, Mario Kart World is hugely successful, Dragon Drive was successful. Like there are just so many examples of these high profile Nintendo games doing huge numbers, and yet like you still see people insisting that like Nintendo is on the verge of failing, that arrogant Nintendo is here, and that they're gonna like somehow drop the ball when they really have no competition at this stage. Like, what exactly is the competition going to do to compete with Fire Emblem, with Splatoon, with uh, with Donkey Kong Bonanza, with Mario Kart World? Like nothing. Like nothing's coming out anytime soon that's competing with any of that. And a lot of the biggest third-party games, you know, games like Star Wars Outlaws, Hogwarts Legacy, Resident Evil Requiem, like they've been ported over already. You know, people spent 5 years trying to pretend Cyberpunk 2077 was good, only for it to get a day one release on Nintendo Switch 2. So like the copes that like Switch 2 has failed or will fail, or that the direct is like turning people away, like I don't think that has any set like place in reality at all. Like I checked like the Nintendo of America YouTube channel like an hour afterward. Um that video, that one video had like 2 million views like an hour later. Like which is really really good for a showcase like this. And of course, that's not going into like all the other places this was streamed, all the restreams, people who will watch like individual game trailers later. Like there's just no that it's just very clear to me at this point that the idea that Nintendo is going to fail it's just completely out of touch with reality. Like people don't understand the current state of the gaming industry, and they don't understand that Nintendo is the market leader, and they don't understand there's really nothing that PlayStation, Xbox, or PC can do to compete with that. You know, people will cling on to their like random indie hits. You know, they'll cling on to their Power Worlds and their Silk Songs and their Grand Theft Auto Sixes, but like at the end of the day, those games are not as successful as what Nintendo is doing, and I think that fact will be more clearly demonstrated over the next 5 years.